And you know, here we are from the Institute of Entrepreneurs and Development, as you already know us, and a few startups that already expressed their interest to participate in this, not a presentation, I will not call it as a presentation, I will call it just a discussion with you. And because we want you to share your knowledge about the venture capital and funding for startups. So, just a few startups are here from our city. As I told you in the previous discussion we have, our city is a small one, a rather small one, approximately 150,000 inhabitants, more an agricultural area, but although there are a lot of creative startups in our region. So it is the first attempt that we are doing in order to provide more information for startups. Would you like to introduce yourself to Bob before we start?
Hi Bob, my name is Bill Itsas. I sent you a request on LinkedIn yesterday. I saw your service. I run a project about mobile land. The name of our startup is Dimitri, and our tool is a social scheduling tool that enables users to share their free time slots with other users, and then can receive requests and accept or deny for personal appointments and meetings. Now we are an early stage startup and searching for our first seed fund.
Okay, two more colleagues are coming. Just in. Hello.
Hi Bob, my name is Mario. I want to start a street cafe here in Larissa, but I can understand how to learn about how to do it.
I'm listening, but it's really hard for me to understand when it's not Dimitri's talking in the front. The front microphone works really well. The back microphone, or from a distance in that room, not so well. So I apologize that I'm not catching everything you're saying.
Okay, maybe okay, yeah, there's a small technical problem, but I think we will fix it in a while. Okay, now we are introducing ourselves to you, Bob, and then we can start with you and talking about a few words about yourself and your presentation, okay?
All right. Did you want me? Are you saying you want me to start?
No. Just we are just presenting ourselves to the
yes.
And after that, if you can, we can start the presentation. Just give us 2 minutes. Yeah. Todos. I'm George. Yeah. Eleni.
And Vasiliki.
Vasiliki. And Alex. All, we are more than 10 people here, 12 people here in this room. We are now. So, Bob, can you tell us a few things about yourself and to continue with the presentation? Is it okay with you?
Sure. I'm a serial entrepreneur. If at any time it is difficult to understand me because I'm talking too quickly,
Yeah.
let me know. Let me know, please. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been doing this for about 20 years, and the biggest challenge I've found is raising money. And it's true that the very best of the best will get money pretty easily, but the rest of us that don't have an identified app that is being sought, or just have something else, some other technology, some other use that isn't in great demand, but is still economically viable and still adds value to society, we find it difficult to get funding very often. And so, my most recent startup ended in January 2014. So for the last 2 years, I've been doing a number of things, but one was writing the startup manual, which is 130 pages long. It's pretty comprehensive. I started the Center for Entrepreneurs, Innovators, and Growth. And that is a service entity that provides business plans, marketing plans, strategic planning, pitch decks, and whatever else might be needed, documentation, whatever else might be needed to facilitate funding for startups. And then most recently, I started the Exchange for Early Stage Investment, which is a funding intermediary. And what it does is it takes pre-qualified and pre-assessed startups and matches them with investors based upon the investor selection criteria. Are you hearing me okay? Are you understanding me? Is anyone there?
Yeah, we can hear you very well.
Okay. So, go ahead.
Moment, Bob. Είμαστε εντάξει μέχρι στιγμής. Δεν χρειαζόμαστε κάτι, ξέρετε, και σε σχέση με την μετάφραση ή κάτι άλλο. Θα συνεχίσουμε τώρα να πούμε και μόλις τελειώσουμε. Okay, Bob, thank you. You can sing.
So that's what I've been doing. My goal is, okay, you may not understand this. Maybe I should go to the PowerPoint, but investors, venture capital firms, and angels generally only fund 2 to 4% of the companies that approach them. Only 2 to 4%. My goal is to increase that percentage to 33%.
4%.
At least for those, go ahead.
4% is very low percentage. It's too low.
And I didn't understand that. I don't think this is working very well.
He said that 4% is a very small percentage.
Now, again, I can hear Dimitris very well. But so, what I want to do is increase, for those companies that work through me, increase their probability of being funded. And that's what I've been doing. Dimitri, should we continue? Are people understanding, or should I stop?
They are.
They are understanding. Okay. Well, okay. So let's go. That's my background, my education. I'm an attorney with a master's degree in finance. I was licensed as a CPA. I worked for a big company in just about every area, including mergers and acquisitions and managing a very large $300 million portfolio for the big company. I headed human resources and developed the function, etc. So I have a pretty strong background educationally with big companies and with startups. So that's a lot about me. I'm going to go to the PowerPoint now, if that's okay.
That
So
is fine.
here comes the screen. Be ready.
Sure, it's fine, Bob.
Okay. The title is How to Get From Here to There. The contents, and thank you, Tassos, for your suggestions. They're pretty much what you've suggested. Introductions, thank you. U.S. funding opportunities. You can read it. I'm sure you're reading. Your English is going to be very, very good. What to do to get funding, funded startup characteristics, the manual, the center in the exchange, and questions and answers. Okay, let's see what I have here. I want to thank the Institute and Tassos for this webinar, and Dimitris for his help. What I'm going to do today is just a snapshot. There is very little time for a manual that has 130 pages, and we have about an hour. So this is going to be an overview and just some highlights of what I think is important for you to take away. I did ask you to prepare, or at least I asked Tassos to ask you to prepare a self-assessment of your startups. And as I mentioned in the accompanying email, it's for your own use. And what I tried to capture with that self-assessment was the scope of the kinds of things that investors are looking for and looking at. Frankly, what's most important to them, well, it's a toss-up. It's very, very important to them to invest in opportunities that have great return potential so that their investments do well. The other side of it is they demand that the management of the startup be strong. And their belief is, first of all, your financial projections may be legitimate and may be your best guess, but they've been through this so much that it's pretty common for them to take your financial projections and take the results and divide them by 10 for a realistic picture of what they can expect. But they also know that to achieve even that result will require a strong management team. Now, that does not mean that the management team has to be strong in every area. What it does mean is that the management team has to have strong leadership and be willing to backfill where the startup is not as strong. In other words, outsource weaker areas or bring in people or have a plan to bring in people and expertise to cover the areas that are not as strong. So I was hoping that the self-assessment of your startup would help you to understand how the investors look at things and help you to better understand where you are from their perspective, from their eyes. So let's keep going. Okay, in many ways, I may be doing what we call preaching to the choir in terms of churches, etc. You may know much of what I'm going to share with you already. I'm assuming you don't. Go ahead.
Did you start the PowerPoint presentation? Because we cannot see any PowerPoint.
Oh, you're not seeing it?
No, we can't see you.
Do you see the PowerPoint?
No.
No, you have to click on the green button again.
Okay. Just a second, please.
Άρα τους αρχίζει να μας λέει σημεία τα οποία εγώ είχα δει παλιότερα κρατικά ενδιαφέροντα σε σχέση με το τι χρηματοδοτούν και τι δεν χρηματοδοτούν.
Yes,
Are you seeing it now?
Yeah, we can see it.
You see the PowerPoint now?
Yes.
Okay, there's the contents, introductions, funding sources. The first source are friends and family and yourself. And investors expect you to put skin in the game, to invest. The third F, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke, but it's true. The third F stands for fools, F-O-O-L-S, meaning that anyone who invests at this stage of a startup is not wise. But so they're looking for the first investment to come from the startup founder and his friends and family, and then as appropriate, grants are a great way to raise money. A more recent phenomenon is the use of accelerators, not so much necessarily for raising money, but preparing the startups for approaching investors. A really great way to raise money is through industry partners. My one caveat for industry partners is if you enter into a relationship with an industry partner and they say they want you to do something and then they will be more interested, my strong recommendation is that you get their commitment in writing. In other words, have an agreement that if you do X, they will do Y, so that they are legally obligated to follow through and do what they say they're going to do. And many times, I have worked with industry companies and they keep moving what we call the goal line. In other words, they say, well, show us you can do this. And we do that. And the next thing they say is, well, show us you can do that. And they keep moving the goal line, making it impossible for us to succeed. And eventually we run out of money because we keep satisfying them, but they don't come through with the money from their side. So get things in writing. Next, crowdfunding, crowdsourcing. it's a really growing source of money. For 2015, it's expected to be $15 billion. Excuse me, $34 billion. And in 2016, this year, it's expected to equal angel and venture capital funding individually at about 60 billion. So crowdfunding, crowdsourcing is definitely a possibility. The only challenge with them and the use of crowdfunding and crowdsourcing is it's kind of, well, it's changing, it's evolving, but it's kind of specialized. It started by being focused on arts and social benefit, and now it's through changes in law, especially in the US, it's expanding, and it's not as constrained or limited, but certainly it should be among all of the possibilities that you entertain at the same time. So always do everything all the time. And so that you have the greatest probability of success. For each one of these, expand as deep and as far within each of these to get as much as you can and to have the highest probability of success. And then in total for all of these, work them all to the extent that they are appropriate for your stage of development and your stage of funding, but never ever rely and place the success of your company only on one outcome, because chances are with one outcome it will take longer than you expect and you won't be successful. So always have a leveraged approach where you are trying to do as much as you can over as many venues as you can. The next one is intermediaries. That's what I mentioned in terms of my startup called The Exchange. And an intermediary is a type of business that works generally for a startup in helping the startup find money. Intermediaries can be expensive, but the alternative to having no money is a worse outcome. So you always want to be successful in raising money, or you'll fail. Ultimately, you'll fail, or you won't meet your potential. Then we get to the two that are most common: angels. In the last few years, it depends on where you are in the world, but in the last few years, particularly in the US, angels have become have organized into angel groups. It's made it much more difficult to get money from angels. Angel groups are very much now like venture capital firms. And you have to, startups have to make presentations and have to compete and aren't quite as personal. Now, individual angels as a part of angel groups make the investments, but the hurdles to overcome are just that much more difficult than they were, say, 5 years ago. And so be prepared. The only real difference between angels and venture capital firms, as far as I'm concerned, is that angels are individuals, deep-pocketed, wealthy individuals that invest, while venture capital firms are investing institutional money. That's really the only difference in terms of their selection criteria, and also angel groups will invest less. Venture capital firms generally, oh, it depends, but many of them won't look at any amount less than $5 million US. And you might not be there in terms of where you are with your startup. You may be looking for 200,000 euros, or you may be looking for something under €1 million. And an angel group might be the next best step for you until you get to a point where you could be looking for 5 million euros or more. Some venture capital firms won't look at any amount, won't consider any amount less than 10 million euros. So, so this is kind of an overview. There's much more information on all of this in the manual, and hopefully it's been forwarded to you, or the link to it's been forwarded to you, or you can get that link through the Institute. And I strongly recommend at least a quick reading of the manual. My expectation is it's free, so that's a real plus. My expectation is once you're familiar with the table of contents, when you are dealing with something that you're not familiar with or you don't have strength, you can go back to the manual, go to the table of contents, find that heading, and see what is suggested, particularly the tips and important points. I do recommend a manual. This is just an overview. What to do to get funding. Okay, the manual has 27 appendices, and they're definitely how-to tools. Each appendix is a tool, and appendices 19 and 20 deal with getting funding. The very simple overview steps are, as a startup, and again, you're probably way ahead of this, but identify your product and define it. Really define it as well as you can. Really focus on defining it and narrowing the focus. Identify the industry and identify the stage of development. The next step in terms of getting funding for that product, industry, and stage of development, identify the market niches and which investors invest in those niches. Most investors limit their investments to certain market niches. So you need to find the right investors. And once you found them, contact them, either directly or indirectly, go to their websites, learn what you can about those investors. But once you have a list of, let's say, 10 investors or 20 that could be possible investors, contact them, learn whether they still have money. Quite often, investors are at different stages in their investing rounds, and they may be close to having fully spent or invested all of their money. Well, then you don't want to spend any time with them. Also, they may be at a point where starting January 1 or maybe April 1, they're going to start another round, and they'll have, $10 million they're looking to invest. So contact them to learn their funding status, how much money they have or when they'll have money, and then also learn from them. And often you can get this from their websites, but there is something to be said about making contacts and establishing relationships, which is coming next. But when you make the contact, learn what their most important selection criteria are. And because you don't want to be working to get money from an investor, and after spending time and effort learning that you don't meet their selection criteria. That is a very, very much a waste of time and energy and effort, and you can't afford that. So in contacting them, learn what their most important selection criteria are, perhaps rank order them and see how you fit. In my intermediary, which is a smart database, this is all done automatically. I may have to input the data, but I only find investors that are a good fit for the startup that I'm representing. So you have to do that manually now, but you have to do it, or find someone to do it for you. Again, you want to avoid wasting your time and your resources. Establish relationships. I can't emphasize how important that, I can't emphasize enough how important that is. They have many choices, and they have many that will be just as good as you and your startup. And so having a relationship will be very likely the difference between you're being selected for investment and someone else. This is particularly true for angel groups. It's really important for you to have a champion, an advocate within an angel group that will say, yes, I believe in so-and-so and their startup, and I met them and I like them and they know what they're doing, etc. So don't stay away from relationships. Sometimes we like to do what's most comfortable for us, but I strongly stress that establishing relationships in everything you do, but in trying to raise money, is really, really important. Again, it's common sense, you know this, but sometimes we just take the easy path because we're comfortable with it. Work with their selection processes, meaning making presentations, providing additional information, and then finally understand, and this is the point I was making before, this is a numbers game. In other words, you're at a huge disadvantage coming in. So you are, with a huge disadvantage coming in, the most likely outcome is that you're not going to get funding. It's just a fact. Now, you may be among the top 5%, or you may have a relationship with an angel, or you may have a relationship with a crowdfunding group, or you may have a relationship with a venture capital group. That could make the difference. But all else being equal, understand and expect and be prepared that you aren't going to succeed the first time. Okay, I'm not going to, time is of value. I have 2 slides here, which are from the manual, Appendix 19. And what I've tried to do, the reason I have this here is because the points are so important. And I could go through them, but I'm not going to. So there you have it. But there is Appendix 19 in the manual. If you're looking for funding, I do recommend that you go to the next step and make sure you have a copy of the manual because it's free. And I recommend that you look at Appendix 19. Okay, that's the best use of your time right now. And if there's a saying in the if it's a fit for your need, then use it just like the rest of the manual. If it's not, save it, or not even save it, put it aside until there's a time, if there is one in the future, when it's of value to you. But so going on, funded startups characteristics. I don't know if you go ahead.
Before you continue, can we have 1 minute discussion?
You're breaking up. You're breaking up. I'm catching every second or third word.
Yeah, I know. I can hear my voice from your computer too. So just give us 1 moment to change something. όπως βλέπετε έχουμε πρόβλημα τεχνικό. Θα προσπαθήσουμε να το αλλάξουμε.
Am I breaking up or am I coming through smoothly?
Can you say it again, please? Yeah, let's see one thing. Εγώ θα το φανταζόμουν να κάνουμε τη λίγο δεν θα μας κάνει μια παρουσίαση εγώ, αλλά από εκεί και πέρα θα μπορούσαμε να κάνουμε εμείς να κάνουμε τη αυτό που αναφέρονταν πριν ήταν το Μάγιο, το οποίο μας έχει στα ίδια μετά έχει πάρει το όνομα σχεδόν. Θα το στείλω εγώ. Just give us 2.
Okay, you are breaking up, so I'm not. Where before I could understand some things, now I'm not understanding anything. So, the question is, am I coming through so you can hear me, or am I breaking up?
No, we can hear you just fine.
I'm coming through okay?
Now it is better. Can you hear us a little bit better now?
That is better, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is better.
All right. Okay.
Okay, I'll go. Do you want me to continue?
Yeah, please.
Okay, just a second, please. Do you see the slide?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, just a second, please.
Bob, you were saying before to the previous slide that it is crucial to start finding investors. How I'm going to find an investors list?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
Yeah, in your previous slide, you said that it is important to find the investor. How I'm going to find a list of venture capitals or business angels in order to contact with them?
I'm fine with continuing as long as you want to continue, but I'm having a hard time. This is not a good medium for me. And it's very frustrating because it should be clear for all of us. The spoken word should be very clear, and it's not. So you've already asked me the same question twice, and I'm still not understanding it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Do you think that we can use Skype, Bob?
I have used Skype, but I haven't used Skype for a presentation like this. Have I? I don't know. It's been a while. But I know Skype has improved. I am not in a great room. There's a lot of echo in my room where I am, and so it could be that we don't have good acoustics in each of our rooms.
Okay, so I believe that we should not interrupt you. You can continue with the presentation, and at the end, we will pose you some questions, okay?
Okay. What I'm going to do is after this call, I'm going to send to you, Tassos, my presentation. And then you can forward it to everybody so that they can take their time and look at it. They'll then have the presentation, they'll have the manual, and they'll have that write-up that we did that tied the three together. And I think they'll have most of what I can provide at this time. So I'm going to go back to the presentation. So here we go. And thank you for your patience. Thank you for your patience. I know it's been difficult. So at least from my end, it has been. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go through this very quickly. It's only one page. Funding characteristics. I don't know if you can see it. It's awfully small. I probably should have put it on 2 pages. In 2015, VCs in the U.S. invested 59 billion in startups. Couple of things about that. I'm going to take the time to tell you these things. I hope you understand. Venture capital firms most often do not invest in the first round of early stage companies. Most first round money comes from angels or crowdsourcing or crowdfunding. Venture capital firms, once they have invested, will invest multiple rounds. So if you're thinking, gee, I'd love to go to a venture capital firm because I need 20 million euros, and it's your first round, you're going to be in a difficult place in terms of trying to achieve the 20 million from a venture capital firm. There are always exceptions to everything, but generally speaking, your first round you have to work up that source of funds chart that I showed previously, that showed the FFF, the crowdfunding, accelerators, grants, et cetera, you kind of have to work up that schedule because the selection criteria are more rigorous the further along you go. And for venture capital firms, it's most rigorous. And for angel groups, it's fairly rigorous, except the amounts are lower, as I mentioned. Okay, so interesting, you may find this interesting or helpful. I don't know if this is still the case, but recently, roughly 2/3 of investments came from U.S. investors in the world, and about 15% of world investments came from the EU. So it's altogether legitimate to be thinking in terms of getting money from the U.S. And you're not even constrained from doing that. It just means it's a very competitive marketplace, and you'll have to be successful. You will have to have a very attractive investment opportunity because there will be others in the U.S. that are very attractive. And then you'll try to find other relationship links to the investors that you find in the U.S. One thing that's interesting, and it's a recent occurrence over the last 3 or 4 years, is the growth in the number of accelerators in the EU that have ties or relationships to U.S. investors. And that's a wonderful way to proceed just because of the relationship with the U.S. investors. And very often, and maybe in all cases or most cases, the EU accelerators will have a boot camp or will invest enough money for them, for the startup to be in the accelerator for, say, 1 year. That's a nice way to go. There is a cost to it, of course, because the startup must give equity to the accelerator. But truly, every startup should be looking for one or more paths forward that will increase the probability of success. And I fully expect even being included or accepted by the EU accelerators is a very difficult task, because there are so many opportunities in the EU. I know Central, Eastern, Southern Europe has an awful lot going on in terms of startups. Clearly you do. I've been reading about Romania and Bulgaria recently, Sofia and different places in Romania. And the fact is, there are tons and tons. I don't want to be negative, and I don't want to overstate it, but there are many startups that are looking for their path forward, as you all know. And getting into an accelerator may be very difficult. It may be just about as difficult with the competition in Europe as it is to get funding in the US from a VC or an angel group. So I think this call is timely. Hopefully it's helpful, but unless you are in a pocket where you have a very wealthy pocket, where you have many wealthy investors and not so many investment opportunities, you will be greatly challenged to be successful in raising money. And that's why I created my three-legged stool, the manual for free information that will help you, I hope, the center to provide expertise and experience and the resources you need to be prepared, along with the assessment, the free assessment questionnaire, so that you are better positioned in the competition in raising money. And then finally, in this very difficult money-raising climate, the exchange hopefully will position you with enough investors so that you have a higher probability of success and with the right investors. So I'm going to keep going on this characteristics. Okay, this is interesting. In a recent analysis, software startups received 43% of total investments. Biotech startups dropped, they were second, dropped significantly. They received 12% of investments. And let me make a point here because it's close to my heart. I understand software is hot, and I know that probably many or most or all of your startups that are in that room or maybe online have apps and are that kind of startup. And it really makes sense because that's where the money is in terms of getting investment and potential reward. However, I've had a nanotech startup and a biotech startup, and I can tell you that there are many, many good non-software startups that would be good for the society, good for people, and are economically viable, that are kind of dismissed because of all the rush towards app startups and funding them. And it's a reality, but I'm not so sure that it's good for people. Okay, so the third one is media and entertainment at 9%, IT services at 6%. So between software and IT services, it's roughly 50%. And then consumer investments, consumer startups, they're also at 6%. And then at the bottom of this page, the final 6 bullets are what the most important characteristics are for investors. The first one, 6 up from the bottom, is a strong management team. Again, I can't stress that enough. It's very, very important. Second, is a unique product or service. There's a concept here I want to share, and I hope you're understanding some of this. It's the distinction between revolutionary and evolutionary. Revolutionary means it's a unique and distinct new product or service. That's what's most attractive. The alternative is something that's evolutionary. What that means is Coca-Cola now dominates Pepsi-Cola. Some others now dominate the soft drink market. Let's say you have a new soft drink that is cheaper, it manufactures, so there's more margin. It's healthier and has other benefits. Evolution wise, it's better. It's just better. But you'll have a very difficult time finding investors because the market has been captured and is controlled by established companies and products. So if you are, and this may affect 1 or 2 of you in the audience, if you have a product or service that is evolutionary, in other words, it's better, and you can make the argument all day long why it's better than the other thing that's out there that isn't as good. Do understand it's a very steep hill to climb to get investors. Just because there's brand loyalty, there's name recognition, and there's a resistance to change. There's inertia that says it's going to be very hard for you to go out and do much more than capture a very small portion of the market. So that's what investors look at. Not absolutely. Again, nothing is absolute, but it's a difficult hill to climb. Investors are looking for you to have, this is the third from the bottom, and that is a clear picture of the market and a realistic plan. As I mentioned, investors routinely divide your financial projections and results by a factor of 10. They also are going to measure the management team on how well they've defined the market, the competition, and the plan to capture market share. So nothing is done in a vacuum. And your market analysis, your marketing analysis, your marketing plan, your sales plan, your pricing plan, all of that is going to be looked at very closely by investors. And then finally, the exit strategy. Investors are going to be looking at what your objective is, whether you have the startup to build it and grow it and have it forever and leave it to your children. Most people that are starting companies are young. The vast majority are young. No, it's not absolutely true, but the vast majority are young, and they're really looking to make a lot of money. And to move on to the next thing, and to be serially successful. Absolutely a wonderful plan for an individual. Nothing wrong with that. And investors will love that. Investors will love that. In fact, if you are successful the first time with them, they will want to be your partner because you'll have shown that you know how to be successful. But if your plan is to own the company forever and leave it to your family, to your kids, you will find it more difficult to raise money. Now, again, nothing is absolute. That is one of the key facts that you should know, and you probably do know, that nothing is absolute, and your success will be dependent upon your drive, your persistence, your perseverance, and your sense of urgency. So I can give you general measures of what to expect and what to do and things to think about, but it's all about the founder and her or his leadership and personal qualities that will make the company a success or not. So I'm going to go to the next one. Okay, I'm not going to say much about this, but this is from the manual, the table of contents. I hope, if you haven't looked at the manual yet, I encourage it so much. It does nothing for me because it's free. I get nothing, I don't want anything from you looking at the manual. But I really believe in the manual, and I really believe the 130-some pages are very, very helpful. As I mentioned before, you may want to at least look at the table of contents and be aware of what the table of contents is, what it includes, and keep the manual on your shelf or someplace where you can get to it if you ever want it. And when you're running into an issue where you would just like some more feedback or support or information, you may want to go to the table of contents, find the chapter, read it. The manual itself is 130 pages, but at least half of it are the appendices. So it's not like you're going to be reading more than 3 or 4 or 5 pages for any subject matter, any topic. So it's not like, I don't want you to be misled. I don't want you to think that I don't want to read 130 pages to find out something about planning. You're going to find it very concisely stated, I hope, I tried, in like anywhere from 2 to 4 pages. And you're going to hopefully find it useful. It won't necessarily give you all of the answers, but it will at least open your mind to what you should be thinking about and considering and what you might want to do and where you might want to get more planning help if that were what you were looking for. Okay, going to the next one. Here are the appendices. I love my appendices. I'm sorry. I'm glad I can't see you, because if I were you, I'd be smiling at this person, pitching, and who is just kind of caught up in his own world. But the appendices are very practical, hands-on tools for you to use. For example, if you're starting a company and in your jurisdiction you need bylaws, you'll find a copy of bylaws that you can use. I do make this point, and that is for anything in the appendices, you really want to work through an attorney or a professional or a consultant to make sure that these appendices apply to your jurisdiction and are appropriate. For example, in Greece, the laws are probably a lot different, not a lot different, are different to some degree as compared to the US in terms of documentation for a closing, for a fundraising, for anything. They're going to be different. So you need to know in Greece or wherever you are in the world or wherever you are in that country, what the laws are, what the rules are. But what's nice about the appendices is they're pretty comprehensive. And just like for the manual itself, a shareholder's agreement, you may or may not need that in Greece. However, you may want to have it in terms of the protections and the requirements. And you can go on and on and on. I really recommend, and then finally, and you'll find Appendix 3 is the assessment questionnaire. Just on and on. You may find this very instructive. The final appendix are tips and important points. Throughout the body of the manual in the text portion, I have different 2 or 3 line tips and important points after each section that I think you should remember or at least be aware of. So if you're looking at planning, you'll find maybe 2 or 3 or 4 tips and important points. Those are kind of the meat of the manual in addition to the appendices. And so I captured all of them from the text portion and I put them in Appendix 27 and I put them by chapter, name, and number. So you don't have to see the tips and important points. You can just go to Appendix 27, you'll have all of them for the whole manual. Okay, moving on. We're just about done. Okay, I'm not going to, here are all the tips and important points. There are 4 pages of them from Appendix 27, but I would focus on those if you're at all interested. Okay, finally, this is a write-up that I provided to the Institute that talks about these 3 things. It talks about the manual, it talks about the center, and it talks about the exchange. The center, if you haven't seen this already, just quickly and briefly on this page, you see all the things that we do. And they're kind of tied to the appendices, and they're all kind of tied to the manual. And there are no surprises here, okay? The fact is I've done all these things. I have the templates for all these things. I can do them effectively, efficiently, inexpensively, relatively. And I'm not trying to get business from you. Frankly, my best recommendation to you is if you need something done, shop. Don't take anybody's word for it in terms of their expertise. You can go to a Big 5 consulting firm. I don't even know if that's the right number anymore. It used to be the Big 8 when I was younger. Big 5, and they can do a lot of this stuff for you, but they're going to probably charge you a lot of money, or they're going to, they may not. Depends on the relationship they want to build and the prospect they see of having a relationship with you. But these are the things that we can do, and I know they'll be done well. They'll have to be customized for your location. That's a reason to do it locally. It's also nice locally to give the people the business, the work, the income. But my experience is a lot of people, a lot of consultants, a lot of professionals are what I call silo focused or have tunnel vision, and they don't see the total picture, and they don't have all those skills. They might be really good at marketing, or they might be really good at putting together a pitch deck, or they might be really good at putting together a business plan, or all these things. But you lose something, I think, when you have 3 or 4 different people doing different things because they have different areas of expertise. The only benefit that I have, that I provide, and I'm not trying to make this to a pitch, but I think it's true, and that is it's comprehensive and the cost is very affordable. I'm not really in this to make as much money from you as I can. I'm really in it to do as much good as I can. And so there'll be many, many times if we enter into a relationship where you'll just want to talk, and that's just fine, and I'm just glad to do that. So here is some more information that's part of that write-up that I gave to this institute. And then it's already 1/4 and it's getting to evening. I'm happy to answer any questions, although the asking and answering of questions might be more challenging than it's worth, frankly. Here's what I suggest, if you understand me. If you have any questions that you want answered, send me an email, and I will answer your questions.
Or can we tell
Again, I'm not. You're cutting out. I'm sorry.
Δημητρή, να του γυρίσω συγγνώμη παιδιά γιατί εγώ θα ήθελα να δούμε
If I may interrupt because I'm not understanding what you're saying, what I recommend based upon our circumstances now and here, if anyone wants to follow up with any questions, just send me an email. Please send it in English and not in Greek. And I will reply quickly to your questions to the best of my ability in English. And that might be the best way to go. I honestly think so. In terms of the time of day, in terms of trying to understand each other,